If generous giving were a form of water, a lake, an ocean, a waterfall, a puddle, what water is generous giving?
So I see a pouring rainstorm, lots of gifts coming down. We collect them as best we can, and then we try to distribute them to as many people as possible. So I see it as rainfall. That's my part of the water cycle.
This is one that's very dear to Pilgrim Church. We would think of an overflowing well in Zimbabwe because our partners have had difficulties with water.
Well, I guess it would be the ocean, because I know when we have entertained the guests from Zimbabwe, the ocean has been such a symbol of connectedness.
The Connecticut River would be a good example because it starts as a very small stream in the mountains and it just sort of flows. And then it builds energy and it becomes rapids, and the force and the energy drives turbines that produce electricity, and then when it finally comes back into the sea, it is that still steady river again. And I think giving's like that. You build energy.
About 20 years ago, Laconia supported OCWM as a line item of the budget. That process lacked intentionality. Like many other churches, we had increased financial pressures on the OCWM budget, and it was always a very tempting target. As a simple line item, it looked like just like the oil bill or an electric bill or anything else. So we took a look at what we ask our members to do: to give proportionally, commit to intentional giving, and make giving a part of their actual faith journey. The result was that we became very intentional in our giving, making it a pledge at the beginning of the year, saying that we're going to give 10% no matter what the budget is. Just was an intentional faith statement that our church wanted to make at the beginning of the year. Instead of waiting to the end of the year to see how much we gave, we wanted to make sure it was the first fruits. We wanted to make sure that we made that commitment to the wider church right up front. You know, it's really important to take to get our vitality from the wider church. You know, I feel like energy flows into our local church. Money goes out to the conference, but we get gifts back. Based on a biblical tithe, we as a church pledge 10% of our total income to OCWM, period.
We're a small church, fewer than 100 members, but we have a long history of giving to OCWM.
In 1967, when Pilgrim Church was formed, we were struggling to find a place to meet as a church, and we were able to buy an old egg packing plant in Kingston to use for our sanctuary, only because we had the loan from the conference center through our church's wider mission.
Every year, we vote at our annual budget meeting to give 10% of our budget to OCWM.
And we've been able to continue through the years, even though sometimes it's been a hard struggle. But during that struggle, we've been adamant about supporting the conference through our 10% of our income.
We wouldn't be Pilgrim Church without the conference support, both in terms of assistance, financial assistance, and staff assistance.
The conference has been behind us in just every step of the way when we felt we needed encouragement, because we probably aren't the most popular church in town because of some of our progressive ways.
So we know that we're not in it alone. We know that we have covenant with the conference, with our denomination, with each other. And we support OCWM because it feels as if that's the way to do it.
20 years ago, like many churches, we struggled in our stewardship. And when a church is struggling to make its bills being paid, there's no vision going on, there's no dreaming. And we were caught in that dynamic. And the stewardship issues changed when we began to talk about money. We've got a big granite building, and it had to be addressed. And I'd be very honest with you, I was a somewhat young pastor. I thought I was going to be the first one that was going to bankrupt the church. The goal was $1.2 million. And so we had a lot of discussions, and we did a lot of education. And I think that's the key in our church, is that we educated the congregation. We had numbers of sessions of questions and answers. But that didn't provide me any solace, because I'm really concerned about how this is all going to work out. Well, to make a long story short, we didn't quite make our goal. We're probably $200,000 short, but we did a lot. And what happened is that we began to realize that if we put our minds together, our faith together, and our vision together, we can accomplish stuff that we never thought we could do. So the next major step happened 2 years later. We began talking about OCWM and what's that obligation and why do we want to do that. And we were beginning to talk about pledging in our church, and we were going to offer people the concept of tithing. And I said to the Stewardship Committee, who were quite responsive, if we're going to do that, then we need to tithe ourselves as a church. We can't ask people to do what we're not doing. The energy that we get out of that first capital campaign carried into that decision. And so 18 years ago, we decided that all of our income that we receive, 10% would go back to OCWM.
Generous stewardship giving. If it were a tree, a New Hampshire tree,
Well, I'd have to say it was a mighty oak of sorts, because we talk a lot about the very strong roots of our history of the church in New Hampshire and all around the UCC. So I say it has great roots and a real strong trunk, but a lot of branches that are going out in many different directions to serve many different people in many different ways.
A mighty oak. Little acorns produce mighty oaks, and I think that our giving, we may be contributing a couple little acorns, but I think that the outcome is some mighty oaks.
I guess I would just hope and pray that through the years the membership would continue to support OCWN and feel that sense of connectedness.
What I experienced is what we began talking about 20 years ago, is the joy of generosity.